the golden age of WWE. Larger than life of fantasy. Step in the ring, feel history. Welcome to the golden WWE.
From stabbings to rewriting history to tears in my eyes, it's the Royal Rumble 1992 right here on the Golden Hour. Sean Mooney, how are you doing today? Woo!
Oh, I wonder why you would say that. Woo! It's a lot of wooing going on in this Royal Rumble. And for good reason. It happened to be, I think, the best Royal Rumble ever. And as we'll get into it, but I think we already gave away the hero of the day, Ric Flair, in this, and what he ended up doing this day in Albany.
It is one of the greatest Royal Rumbles of all time. And that was my first question to you, and you kind of answered it, where the argument has been going on since this event. Is the 1992 the Royal Rumble the greatest Royal Rumble of all time? Now, why do you think it's the greatest one, though, personally for you?
Well, there's so much going on in this one. And of course, you've got Ric Flair, who comes in number 3, which there was, the whole psychology behind this is great, too, because I'm sure, people's initial thought, well, if you're going to do something like this, make him number 1. And no, it's not that easy. And I know that, Bobby, who pitched this, apparently, said, make Rick number 1, but Vince liked to add a few layers to the onion here and says, now we'll make him 3. It can't be, completely, start to finish. That would be like too storybook in a sense. But at the fact that, Rick ends up being in there for eternity and, getting it done is pretty amazing. So coming in at 3 was great. And then you've got Bobby the Brain Heenan. And if you go on all of these sites or, Reddit or whatever it is, and people ask about the Royal Rumble 1992, one thing that keeps coming up is just how tremendous Bobby was.
And Gorilla.
On the microphone. Yes. But, Bobby had a vested interest in this for it to turn out the way it did. And it's so weasel throughout, because he goes up and down with his emotions of, of course he's rooting for Flair the whole way. And, and Gorilla keeps reminding him, you're supposed to be the objective commentary person here, and he just shut up, just shut up, Gorilla, but keeps going on and rooting. And then he goes up where he's just, oh, it's terrible, it's all over, it's forget it. And then Flair does something, and I knew he was going to. I told him to do that, Yes. And anytime anything happens, he's going, get in the corner, rest, don't get in there. What are you doing? So, those are the 2 biggest elements of this. And it was just, but there was also so much more with, look at the people that were involved in this, the superstars. I mean, I don't know what the count is, but I'm sure the number of Hall of Famers that were in the ring.
I did the count. So it's 19 wrestlers.
Okay, I thought it was like 20 something, but yeah.
It's about, yeah. So it's incredible the numbers you have here, because let's just go through the list too. British Bulldog, $1 Million Man, Ric Flair, Jerry Saggs, Haku, Shawn Michaels, Tito Santana, The Barbarian, Texas Tornado, Repo Man, Greg Valentine, Volkov, Big Boss Man, Hercules, Roddy Piper, Jake the Snake, Jim Duggan, IRS, Jimmy Snuka, The Undertaker, Randy Savage, Berserker, Virgil, Colonel Mustafa, Iron Sheik, the model Rick Martel, Hulk Hogan, Skinner, Sergeant Slaughter, Sid Justice, and the Warlord. That's a Hall of Fame list up and down, but according to the glance, 19 are actually in the Hall of Fame in this match.
Yeah. And as we talked about before, that, Vince had worked very hard to build a roster like that. And I think we're seeing the peak when you've got so many recognizable names. And I really felt that overall, it shows you what the WWF at the time, WWE, of course, had become, that you had never before. I think about of all of the other organizations out there that you would have 20 basically,
Yeah,
and of course even the others that were involved that were, in a sense, if you were any kind of a wrestling fan, they were household names.
of course.
They didn't, and the fact that their gimmicks that they had were that recognizable. And so I think at the time when you look back at this and you see a collection, and I've always said, how much I love these events in the sense that it gives all these guys that work their ass off and, putting in those days of making these house shows, that it gave them the opportunity to really get a decent payday to be involved in these matches, but also that the fans around the world got the chance to see these guys. And so, 92, man, this to me was kind of the peak of it all, of a collection of superstars and really what Vince McMahon had created.
I agree.
Yeah,
And what's interesting about
phenomenal.
this, well, I think there's a couple of reasons why I believe a lot of people think this is the number one Royal Rumble of all time. One,
Mhm.
there's a storyline thread from the beginning to the end. No pay-per-view, past or
Mhm.
present, has given you this thread of the beginning of Bobby is on commentary from the beginning, rooting for Ric Flair, talking about the Royal Rumble, talking about Ric Flair, hyping it up to the end when Ric Flair does win. Spoiler alert. And even backstage, he leaves the commentary booth. He goes backstage in the back for the promo, the most famous promo of this evening. I think that's what makes it great, because there's a storyline. It's not match that had a storyline. All right, next match,
Mhm.
this has a storyline. No, there's a storyline throughout the evening. And of course, the commentary, the soundtrack to this event. It doesn't matter if we're watching the Beverly Brothers versus the Bushwhackers or LOD versus the Natural Disasters. Bobby and Gorilla on commentary are the best part. Now,
Yeah.
you got a chance to work with both of these Hall of Famers. Actually, you know what? I think about it. Talk about the wrestlers. Bobby and Gorilla are also in the Hall of Fame. And so there's a lot of people on this list in this evening that are on the Hall of
Yeah.
Fame. So I want to tip my hat to them. But what was it like working with Bobby and Gorilla around this time? Because
Oh,
they are the best.
yeah. And they are. They're at their peak as well, working together. They were a oiled machine, the way they played off one another, and in this Royal Rumble, do you think that Bobby had a conflict of interest? Okay,
Right.
maybe, but
Perhaps.
but seriously, they were really just such a great team. And we've discussed many, many times when we talk about commentary, they were the two for me.
Hmm.
And because of the dynamic of the way it worked. And it was kind of a simple formula of, Gorilla, uh, sharp on his uh, description of the play-by-play, and he's got to interject, and it's going to be something outrageous, and Gorilla lets him get away with it for a while, and then finally smacks him down. And then, the bluster is out of Bobby, and he kind of recovers, and then as they get back into that groove and that rhythm again, and then Bobby does it again. But at this point, and you listen to this start to finish, the entertainment value of just listening to that commentary
Yep.
was phenomenal, besides what was happening in the ring. And as you mentioned, this was it just unfolded as you listened
It's
of
perfect.
of how the emotions that Bobby's going through, and he's up and down, and he's just blatantly rooting for Flair the whole way because his selfish interests. He says that I've got you talk about a windfall. If this happens, I'm
He's got
easy
rich.
street.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He asked for drinks on commentary too. Bobby's like, I need something with a kick. I need something with a kick. And never in my life would you think on commentary that someone's screaming out, I need a
Drink.
booze. I need
Yeah,
booze because
yeah.
I'm stressing. I'm stressing.
Oh, and the lines in there, you could pull out, 30 of some of Bobby's best lines in there. Even at the beginning when Tunny comes out and he goes, he's the best president since Noriega.
He hate,
Like, where did that come from?
he hates it. He hates Tunny.
Oh yeah. And it just went on and on. And then as he's, I made some notes about it, but just one after another. And folks, you have to realize, Bobby was never a guy. He didn't keep a notebook. There's some people that do that, where they'll think of something. I got to remember to work this in. That wasn't how Bobby worked. It was all top of mind. And that's how his brain worked. That, it was all situational because of course you didn't know what was going to happen, but that just came naturally to him. And I think that if he would have tried to do it another way, it wouldn't have worked because that's how he was. He was just all reactionary to everything, and just his mind was so quick. And this was a classic example throughout, that you got to listen to him for that full hour of this. Of course, he did the other stuff, but I mean that just this uh, put together and from start to finish, he was just so freaking funny, entertaining throughout. And there wasn't any dull moments
No.
when, if there was any lull in the action, the banter between Gorilla and Bobby, would pick up. They knew they could feel it too. There was more to it than what was guys do in the ring, but you also, when you've got people calling it, they've got to carry it too. And the whole combination worked. It absolutely worked for me.
I think that's true too, because Bobby and Gorilla obviously had chemistry, but
No.
now Bobby has this underlining, I'm rooting for Ric Flair the whole time.
Yeah.
That's the storyline he's bringing to the table. Gorilla's there to shut him down for the whole hour of just shut up, be quiet.
Yeah.
You're supposed
Do
to be
your
here doing
job.
a job,
Yeah.
but yet Bobby keeps jumping in on Ric Flair. I think that's what makes it the best part, because most of the time it's commentary doing commentary. Bad guy roots for bad guy, good guy roots for good guy. Bobby Heenan's not there to cheer on Jake the Snake, who's a bad guy,
No.
or Colonel Mustafa. He is there for one reason and one reason only, and that's to make sure that Ric Flair wins the Rumble and, of course, have a drink with a kick. One of my favorite lines, though, from this evening is when Roddy Piper comes down and starts beating down Flair. Eventually, Jake pulls Piper off of Ric Flair and Bobby. It's like, oh, thank you, Piper. Thank you. I'll say it. I'll say it. It's not a skirt. It's a kilt. It's a kilt. And then about 2 seconds later, Piper punches Ric Flair. He's like, you son of a gun. You know what? Take it back. It is a skirt. It is a skirt. And he's just screaming. No, Piper can't hear Bobby.
Yeah. I mean, it's just classic Bobby. And he works like a comedian. He really did. I always said that, if he wasn't involved in wrestling, he would have been a stand-up comedian. He would have been like Rickles, the way he could tear people to shreds. But he also knew how to do that. Like just the comedians, they'll have a great line or something, and then further a bit down, they bring it back. And Bobby had that kind of timing, whether he realized it or not. But that's how he worked. He was a legit comedian, and he would have been somewhere that man had to be on a stage, whether would have ended up being a great character actor in the movies or a stand-up comic. He could have done that because that's how good he was.
Yeah.
Fortunately for all of us who are professional wrestling fans, we got him. And he's a treasure. I mean, Bobby was a treasure. There's no question about it, and a unique talent that WWE was blessed to have. And it's tragic how it all ended up, but I think in the end, and he deserved to be in the Hall of Fame. But we've discussed before about the breakup of Gorilla and Bobby, and it still hurts to this day. But they go down in history for me, and I think for many, many, many others as the greatest commentary team ever in professional wrestling.
Correct. And again,
Yeah.
I hope everyone, like you say, when you're looking it up anywhere about Royal Rumble 92, the commentary gets a lot of credit for why this event is so good. Of course, Ric Flair going over 60 minutes. And the biggest part about this Royal Rumble is the World Championship is on the line. This is the first time we've ever seen something like this where it's vacated because of the bullshit that happened with Jack Tyner's terrible presidency during the Survivor Series 1991 and this Tuesday in Texas. Just Ric Flair always getting involved, and that led to the championship being vacated, which led to the winner of this Royal Rumble becomes the World Wrestling Federation champion. And that just added a cherry on top, because now you're thinking, wait a minute. We could have Hacksaw Jim Duggan. We could have Jake the Snake. We could have Piper. We could have so many people become world champion. I think that's what also adds the element of, ooh, this is a little different, because we have the world title on the line. Now, let's flash back because we did do a podcast about Survivor Series 91 and this Tuesday in Texas. Now, do you know if the plans were always for this Royal Rumble to be for the World Championship and Survivor Series 91 and this Tuesday in Texas? The shit that happened with the world title were all setting us up for Royal Rumble, which was setting us up for Ric Flair versus Hulk Hogan at WrestleMania 8?
Well, I think that if we try and think that way, I think we're giving them too much credit. Because, the thing is, we talk about this tremendous roster, and when you have all this stuff going on, things go wrong. There's always things happening. These are human beings. They're not perfect. They have to live lives out of arenas, and crap happens. And so I don't think so.
Okay.
But they were always innovative and pivoting, and this worked out great. Even Ric Flair claims that he had no idea that he was going to be getting the strap until he arrived at the arena that day. I don't know, and he talked about the night before being out with DiBiase the whole night. I think if you're going to win the WWF Heavyweight Championship, are you going to party till 5 a.m? Well, if you're Ric Flair,
I was just going to say, I was like, what are you talking
probably.
about? Yeah.
But his performance that day, and I'm sure our audience is smart enough, and I use that word in respect to this business, to know that to go an hour is unbelievable. And Rick didn't take an easy ride. He could have done a lot of the things that Bobby would have liked him to do, stand in the corner, get out of the way, but he was working. And here he is. He's over 40 at this point, I think 42 or 43. And he's working that whole time and taking some nasty bumps and going around the ring and lifting guys. And so you have to give him a lot of credit for just that performance that day, because it's not easy to have that kind of ability to work that hard for that long. And as I said, now back then you were an old man. At least that's the way you looked at it.
Mm-hmm.
But still, you're not 25 anymore either at that age. So just a tremendous performance all the way around for Ric Flair. And what a feather in his cap, awful cliche, but really for him to win this championship and have been, champion with other organizations, we know which one we're talking about, was just this was the peak. I think, absolutely was the peak. And to do it that way, where you beat all of these guys to get the straps. So I'm sure it had to have been for Rick, and I know he has said it many times, that it was really the reaching that summit to get to that point, his Everest, being able to look down at what he had accomplished.
In his promo after winning, he does say, "This is the greatest moment of my life." It's
Yeah,
funny
I
though.
believe it. Yeah.
So we gave too much credit to the world but it really, Survivor Series 91 this Tuesday in Texas have weird, implications in both those events. Then you get to this Rumble, it's perfect, it's amazing, Flair wins, yeah. But then you get to WrestleMania 8, weird ending. Survivor SummerSlam 92 has some weird shenanigans with perfect. Like, there's a lot of weird 92 rollover from 91, but Flair, this is a great moment for him. But also, how do you... He comes in number 3. He goes 60 minutes. He beats up bad guys. He beats up good guys. Then he wins it. That to me is not wow, what a bad guy. It's like, wow, did you see that guy? Like, he went out there for 60 minutes and kicked everyone's ass, not just randos. He beat up everybody. How do you think Hulk Hogan? Do you know internally how Hogan was feeling? Because around this time, in 91, he was on the Arsenio Hall show where he said, I never took steroids. That might have taken some Hogan dust off of him. We head into 92. Flair wins the championship, 60 minutes, beats up everybody. How do you think, or if you know, how Hulk Hogan would have been feeling about this? Because it doesn't make Hogan look great what happens to him in this Rumble.
No, and especially because we know the stories that when he went out, people he was booed, and people, and they, as it goes, they changed the story.
I want to get, I want to get into that in a
Yeah,
deep
we're
dive
going
in
to
a
get to
second.
that.
Yeah.
But I think that, yeah, he couldn't have it both ways in a sense. He wanted to do all these other things. There was a lot going on, and he still wanted to be the guy at the same time. But you can't go and do all that, and then also, it at some point it begins to wane. No matter what it is, and the reign of Hulkamania was phenomenal. I mean,
Of
look
course.
how long it lasted, and that he would be able to still come back, and people were glad to see him, and he would kind of save the place in a
Mhm.
sense. But at some point, it starts to turn, and you said things like that appearance on the Arsenio Hall show didn't help him when that it was he ends up having to admit in court basically that he did. And still, as for sort of medical purposes and stuff, like who's buying this? So that didn't help. So I said, what it really comes down to, he wanted he wanted always to be that hero, but it's at some point it would start to fade, and I don't think that was easy for him to swallow, to do that. And Sid Justice, Sid talks about how backstage after that he was screaming and yelling, and he was really upset.
Hogan?
Yeah, which would I don't necessarily believe that, because that's not what Hulk Hogan. I never saw him. Where he'd have these emotional outbursts. But I do believe that when like that reaction that he got that we haven't we'll talk about
Yeah.
was a big blow. Kind of like what? Like that was the first real time that it was just you couldn't ignore it. You couldn't just think, was that for something else or what? It was just whoa. And I remember everybody was like, what was that? What's going on? And I think that was kind of a big wake up call for him to see something like that happen.
Because Hulk Hogan leaves after WrestleMania 8, which is only a few months after this, Royal
Hmm.
Rumble 92, because of just there's a lot of heavy things happening. All the local news, all the press is using Hulk Hogan's face as the look, steroid trial, look, steroids in the WWF. They're not picturing Vince McMahon, who no one knows who that guy is except who does commentary. Pictures of Hulk Hogan are everywhere. And I'm imagining if I'm Hogan, like, well, how do you protect your image? How do you get to go keep doing these movies and Thunder in Paradise, and you got to get out of the business? So, do this outburst that Sid brings up? Do you know after this, it's kind of like, well, Hogan has to have a conversation where, all right, I want to leave because this is not working out for me anymore. Let's go away, come back in a little while, and we'll go back to what we were doing.
Yeah, and I'm sure he didn't enjoy the fact that he became the poster boy for this, and because as you said at the time, Vince wasn't out there like that. I mean, everybody knew Vince McMahon ran the company and the whole thing, but he wasn't, you didn't see him on screen. You didn't see him on these shows like that, where he became part of it. So yeah, I'm sure that, was not happy about that, when it came down to, but that came with the territory. He was the guy on top. He was implicated. And I don't know if it was necessarily that him thinking that I got to get out of here. I got to get out of the limelight in
Yeah,
a sense, because he had other stuff going on as well and other commitments that he had made. But it probably helped the situation though to get out of that, out in front of that. So I'm sure though he was not pleased with what was going on, and he probably was wondering, okay, now how bad will this get? You hoping that it just kind of goes away, that people would pay attention, then it dies down. Well, as we know, that didn't happen.
No. And
Yeah.
maybe Ric Flair becoming champion is he's never been known for a man who's been jacked or huge or
Mm.
24-inch pythons like Hogan or even size of Warrior. Ric Flair might be a guy like Bret Hart, I think, is kind of not the scapegoat, but a man's like, look, he can be our world champion because we can put him on posters and people aren't going to go, hey, he's on steroids. They'll think, oh, he's a superstar. He's a professional wrestler. Am I reading too much into that?
Well, I was going to say that even though they're saying the steroids were illegal and all this, I don't think people looked at it like they were drug addicts or something. Yeah, I mean, I think that if everybody looked at it and said, well, how do you think they get that way? How do bodybuilders get that way? And now just because the government has stepped in and now they've made them illegal, also what now they're criminals? So I don't think that in a sense, sure, you don't want to be implicated as this drug user or something. I think that like with Terry, it was people as far as losing their how much they liked him or was the fact that he is denying it. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And just a phony, I think, is what started to surround him in a sense. The Hulkster that we knew was each take your vitamins and say
Say your
your
prayers.
prayers and all this
A
is a
liar.
phony that he's lying. And I remember watching that Arsenio Hall thing, and okay, I was kind of on the inside, but I remember thinking at the time, if I'm watching this, I'm thinking, dude, really? How stupid do you think we are?
Yes.
To sit there and like, no, come on. And so to me, it wasn't more of he's a criminal or he's going to face these charges or it was what a phony. Like
Mhm.
be real. You're always the real American. Well, be the real American. I think that he would have done much better if he said, "Yeah, I did. I used them, but at the time they weren't illegal." And
Yeah.
I've learned
Right.
a lot about them, and now I realize they're probably not good for my body.
Mhm.
And I'm not going to use them. We'll find other ways. There's other supplements or something. And people, right? People would have said, "Oh, wow, yeah, he's being honest with
We all
us.
make
He's telling us."
mistakes.
And I made some mistakes. Probably should have checked into this more. I don't, whatever you would have said, at
Something.
least it
Yeah.
would have been real, authentic. But to sit there and just make it seem, that no, this is the way it is, and you think people at home are going, "Yeah, okay, I believe you." Yeah, like, no, I don't ever remember anybody, and I also know, guys that I worked with are saying, we're saying I won't name specific names, but
Of course.
higher up people who were like, man, that wasn't good. That's not the way he should have handled it. And I know, Vince and other people talking to Terry going to saying, this is what you should do, and yet he went out there and denied it. Like you could have, like that he should have just been straight and with it and
Mhm.
said, I didn't know at the time. Yes, I'd used them, but I didn't know at the time that they were what they were, they're bad for you and that they're legal substances or whatever. People would have accepted that. So bottom line of it, that's what I think hurt his image was more of being a phony to people. Like
Mhm.
people think, and that's kind of where that started.
No, I agree with you because like when you started saying that, like, oh, your childhood hero is this liar, he's a
Yeah.
phony. Well, why believe in him anymore? Because in my brain, it's like seeing like Barney the dinosaur taking his head off and smoking a cigarette and being like, "Hey, kids,
Get the hell out
why
of here.
are
Yeah.
you surprised? Are you surprised I'm not a good dinosaur?" Like that's how I that's how I
Yeah.
imagine Hulk
Get
Hogan
the hell away from
thinking.
me. Yeah, you
Yeah,
smell
get
like
away.
cheese. Yeah.
Hey, Johnny, I told you don't have him
Yeah.
touch me. I told you don't have
Mm.
him touch me. That's how I imagine Hulk Hogan probably was going to that Arsenio Hall thing, being like, well, I'm this good guy. So if I say I did bad things, people will think I'm a bad guy. So if I don't say I did bad things, I'll be a good guy. Total opposite happened.
Yeah.
Where the people who grew up with you are now getting older and they're wiser. They're not stupid anymore and maybe perhaps don't believe in the things you're saying. And it might have
Yeah.
ruined Hulk Hogan here, and that would show you why he is booed very loudly here at the Royal Rumble for also being an asshole.
Well, I mean, and it's funny because a person who makes a living out of understanding how to influence a crowd and get an impact from fans, didn't understand that. And what are the greatest stories in wrestling? You have a hero and he's up here and he's great and everything's going wonderful. And then there's some kind of a downfall. But I still love him and I want to be there for him when he's struggling.
Hmm.
And then he comes back. How many
Yep.
times, Hulk with the arm,
Oh yeah.
and he didn't understand that if I got to, that's what I need to be vulnerable here. I need to tell them that, yeah, I don't, I made a mistake. The Hulkamaniacs would have engulfed him with the giant hug of we're there for you,
Yep.
Hulkster. We'll all get through this together. Instead of lying to me and I'm I thought we were friends. I thought you would tell me but I know you're not being honest with me.
Yep.
You know, so it's interesting to think that he didn't understand that. And one of the greatest ever who knew how to work a crowd didn't understand that the fans that he had weren't going to buy it.
So how do you think the Sid Justice story about Hogan being upset after this event this night? Are you seeing the fallout of this Royal Rumble backstage with Hulk Hogan and his feelings about the company, about Ric Flair, about Sid Justice? Because clearly the wheels are falling off. Like Hulk Hogan is supposed to main event WrestleMania 8 against Ric Flair, then it doesn't happen, and then they have that weird press conference where Hogan's announced, but then Sid's upset. They're setting up Sid and Hogan clearly at Rumble 2. Like, when do you think they said, okay, no Ric Flair versus Hulk Hogan? Hogan's going to also leave. And Hogan's pretty pissed. Like, where do you think Hogan's emotions were? Like, do you know this for sure? What's going on backstage with him?
Well, absolutely not. You never knew for sure what was going on, but you could observe,
Mm.
and I talked to a lot of people, and that he certainly wasn't happy as we saw the way that played out. But I think that, as I said, that was one of the first real times I think that the reaction wasn't what he expected, it was a slap in the face. It's just like wow, and that hadn't happened in a long time. You kind of get lulled into that. This is my world, and I can do no wrong ever. And then suddenly, you're wrong. Now you have to blatantly admit. You have to go, man, I didn't see that coming. And a lot was happening. Um, I think that they were hoping, as we also talked before about that Ric Flair Hulk Hogan always seemed to be the ultimate matchup
Yeah.
and its time had passed. And then you had all this other stuff going on. And then, of course, Bret gets involved in this, thinking that he's going to be the future. And we know how that ended up. So, yeah, it becomes a really tumultuous time here.
The
Um,
company, yeah.
yes.
Let's talk about that Hogan though thing. So Sid eliminates Hulk Hogan in the
Mhm.
Royal Rumble. The crowd cheers for Hulk Hogan being tossed out by
Yes.
Sid
Yeah.
Justice.
Hmm.
And up at this point, Sid Justice he's coming in hot. Like people are really enjoying his work. He's huge. He's muscular. He's a good-looking dude. He's a powerhouse. Everything about him is working. So when that happens, though, Hulk Hogan does something which really confuses me as a Hulkamaniac. Is Hogan's like, well, listen, that sucks, man. You threw me out. That's wrong. No, those are the rules of the Royal Rumbles, sir. First off, you'd be tossed out. Then he wants to shake Sid Justice's hand. Well, Sid's like, all right, I'll be a good guy. Shake your hand. Hogan grabs him,
Trump.
and then Ric Flair sneaks up behind, tosses out Sid. That's how Ric Flair wins the match and becomes world champion. How is Hulk Hogan the good guy in this scenario at all? As Sid is following the rules of the Royal Rumble, and Hogan's like, "All right, brother, I'm so sorry. Give me a handshake." Oh, gotcha, son of a bitch, and pulls him out.
Yeah. Well, and that just showed you that he didn't really understand because that's not the way this scenario is supposed to go.
Mm,
And as you said, Hulk goes out, they cheer, he grabs Sid Justice, which allows Ric Flair, and they boo the Hulkster for
kicking
and
Sid out.
yeah, and it is. Wait a minute, that wasn't. I mean, obviously, they ended up redoing it in a sense with the commentary and sweetening it back, reversing it the other way. They had to create that, which wasn't real, in a sense of how things are, supposed to go with it. And so, yeah, it's like everybody had it wrong. I mean, that's, the way it was going to play out. It wasn't, wasn't like Hulk let his motions get the best of him and he pulled that move or something,
Yeah.
like they had to get sit out, right? And and set up that the bit between Sid and the Hulkster, but it just wasn't received the way they thought it was going to be.
But how did they think it was going to be received? Hogan's done this in the past with Big Boss Man, like other people, where he gets eliminated, then he comes in and he's upset, and then he throws someone out, and everyone cheers. This is the first time, you're right. It didn't turn out that way. But
Well,
for
because Sid was supposed to be this
the bad guy
heel.
in this, yeah, in
Yeah.
this scenario.
Uh,
But
yeah.
yeah,
And Sid talks about it, saying that he was upset the way it all kind of ended up going down, and he said he went to talk to Vince after, said I'm out of here, and Sid was always like that. Sid was, in a second, he never had that passion for it. To him, it was a paycheck. As long as everything's going well and he's enjoying himself and there's not a softball game
of course.
somewhere, he'll stick around. But he talks about how after that, because they're freaking out over and trying to make Hulkster happy, and then he's kind of thinking, well, I'm going to be the odd man out again. They're going to screw me again here. And went to Vince and said, look, handshake, dude, I'm out. I'll go. And he said Vince wouldn't do it, wouldn't go for it, tried to talk him down on it. And we saw, that they placated him somehow. But at that event, he was like, screw this, man. I know how this is going to play out. Hulk's going to get everything he wants. He always does. And I'm going to end up getting screwed here. So
He did.
yeah, but it wasn't that, as we saw, it didn't play out the way they thought it was going to, and
No.
which is really amazing to think about it.
And they have to save the situation too, where
Yeah.
when anytime there's clips of this shown on Superstars or Primetime, a wrestling challenge, or the pay-per-view rebroadcasts, usually it's a couple days later after this, you could order it again.
Hmm.
They had Bobby and Gorilla go back into the audio booth and
Hmm.
cover up with new commentary the situation that's breaking out with Hogan and Sid Justice. They even edit out the boos and the cheers. Cheers for Sid's are gone, boos for Hogan
They
missing. They
sweetened it.
swap
Yeah.
them out, and suddenly it's booing when Hogan's tossed out and cheering when Sid's out. To me, we're turning into like Hulk Hogan propaganda where we need to protect our assets. But in reality, when Hogan's all over the news, lying on Arsenio Hall, steroid trials coming up, it seems like you're protecting the wrong people in this scenario, because Hogan, who did that help? Who did fixing this help? Nobody.
No, but they had to continue to build him up. They had to keep him in that position. It wasn't like they said, oh, hey, maybe we'll turn him heel.
And have Sid become the
That
new,
that was,
whatever.
and as for the entire time that Hulk Hogan was with the WWE, that thought of him ever being a bad guy was like, how you're pretty funny. That's a great. That's like no way it could have ever happened. Well, Terry proved everybody wrong with that when he went down south. But the thought then was, you're not going to take advantage of, say, this organic things that are happening with fans kind of turning on the Hulkster, and Vince going, hey, maybe we got something else here. We could turn him, and we got a whole other ride ahead of us. Mm-mm. And that was never a thought in his mind. And I just remember everybody finding it really amusing. That they had to create that whole thing, have Bobby and Gino come in and redo the commentary. And then, as you said, they had to literally change the crowd noise, which you could do. You take out the soundtrack and we could sweeten it and pop more sound into it if people didn't react when they were supposed to be popping. But the fact that they really just had to recreate that ending was amazing. And we had guys that were great, and of course Bobby and Gino were fantastic at what they did, so it worked. But anybody who saw it live was going, wait a minute, that I don't remember it ending that way. I remember when uh, you know when Hulk went out, everybody cheered. It wasn't missed by anybody.
No. And
So that we're creating it, and just like what's going on here? Why would you do that? We already saw it. It's too late.
I'm imagining if you watch the original broadcast and then like, all right, cool, it's Saturday morning, I'm gonna watch Superstars, and you're watching it, and out of nowhere they're showing you the clips of
Yeah.
it, and you're hearing the cheers and the boos in the wrong places, and you're thinking, wait, I just watched this. Let me put it.
Yeah,
Let me put
right.
in my VCR, my VHS tape, and check. Wait a minute. I guess if you watched the rebroadcast, you would have no idea, or watched it on Peacock, or bought the DVDs, the VHS tapes. You wouldn't have known. But
Yeah.
if you watch the original broadcast, you know something is amiss here, and the Hulk Hogan aura is it's disappearing a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, and I
Most
tell you,
about it.
I remember at the time I shaking my head. I can't believe that you think people are going to buy it. And I thought that it was really that people were going to be pissed by it because whatever the audience was, but you have all the dirt sheet was out and all these other things, and people talk about and so I don't know what they thought by recreating history here was going to do. We do, of course, everything we did is created, but once it was out there, leave it. There could have been 1,000 other ways to handle it, or talk about the situation, and they always found ways. As I said, they knew how to pivot. So why blatantly doctor it? And when everybody's going to hear it and see it again in a different way, creating a different way it actually happened didn't make any sense to me. It's that, boy, this is ridiculous.
Again, it's also hard to understand. Even if you fix the cheering and the booing, the fact that Hogan's like, all right, brother, you tossed me out, dude. Oh, man, you got me. How about a handshake? And you're like, oh, all right. And then, I got you, son of a bitch. And then just yanks him out. So Ric Flair and Hulk Hogan worked together to toss out Sid
Turned out
Justice.
that way, didn't
Like,
it?
who are
Yeah.
good guys? And then Ric Flair is a champion. He has to leave the ring so we can have Hogan and Sid have a face-to-face in the ring, like butting heads, so Ric Flair can run back and do his with a tear in my eye promo.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the last thing you see in the audience is Sid and Hulk Hogan. And as we know, probably Hulk Hogan must pose here. And most likely, if you were there live, you got to see him rip off his shirt again. Like,
Well,
give me
and I
another
think
shirt,
that pissed,
brother.
yeah, but I think that pissed people off even more after what we had seen take place. And as you said, we did need Rick to get backstage because they wanted that promo at the end, and which was fantastic. But I think for people at the arena or watching live there, felt that here we go again. Hulk's got to be the left. He's got to take up and soak up all of instead of letting Ric Flair enjoy this moment, has stayed in the ring and he's got the belt and be able to and go off the air like that. And so to me, that didn't work either. I was saying, well, okay, I understand we're creating this, but why couldn't that have been, backstage? Maybe have cameras there, and then they have this little confrontation or whatever. But give Rick his moment, give him the
Re-air it.
time, give him the day, let him win the day really, and then finish with that. Of let him have it, let him soak it in, and as I said. That we needed him back there for that promo. It was fantastic. It stands in history as one of his best. You've got Kurt there and Bobby and and the famous put that cigarette out.
Oh, yeah. Mean Gene. I know. Mean Gene steals the show. After everything that's happened here,
Yeah.
here's Mean Gene making sure all of our lungs are taken care of.
Yeah, and talking to. And I asked him that in the podcast when he was on with me, and he goes, "I just lost my train," and which never happened with Gene. He's always, and he just needed that aside because he didn't know where he was going for whatever, and then he got it back. But you never saw that happen with Gene. But the fact that, and then he, even as they start talking, and he was like you still talk, reprimands like whoever it was, like, there's no cigarette. Are you kidding? You couldn't have a cigarette within a mile of Vince McMahon. My God, and Pat Patterson was a chain smoker basically, and he would have to always go outside or whatever. And I'm sure it drove Vince out of his mind because when you smoke, it's
You smell
always
like smoke.
it's on you.
Yep.
But yeah, so that moment there. But as I was saying, I think the perception of it again was, here we go. Hulk's got to soak it up at the end. It's always got to be about him. And so I didn't think that helped either.
No. And here's a question for you is, some arenas in today's world, all of them have them. They usually have Trons above wherever you
Mhm.
are, hockey rink, basketball court, whatever. A lot of these backstage interviews, like Ric Flair saying, with tear in my eye, becoming world champion, those are not being played with the sound of the audience in the backdrop. It's just no sound, just the camera, the boom mic, whatever. Did anyone in the arena, this might be a dumb question, anyone in the arena ever see some of these airing during broadcasts, or this was always for TV audiences only?
Yeah. Back then, that changed, which, it's very common today. Every time they do something, and they did that with Raw a lot, where they during the Attitude Era, like The Rock, would be backstage, and you'd hear everything that's going on, and that certainly is carried on from that time. And whether or not we really had the technology to do it back then, to where you could broadcast it live out to the arena at the same time, I don't know, but it just wasn't part of the programming then. And that's what as I said, people didn't have the opportunity. They just see that, that Rick scoots from the ring and goes back and does that promo for the live pay-per-view audience. So they never got to see it. Now, maybe if that would have been the case, they would have put it back, had it up, and people would have seen. But like I say, they didn't have that opportunity, and they just thought that he got, all right, you got the bell, or now get out. Now we got to have Hulk and Sid, do their little bit here at the end. It has to be in the ring. Yeah.
God damn it.
Yeah.
Like people pay to see
I think differently. Done it a different way of where. How it would have played out, but I just felt like let Rick have it. Let him have the day here. Let's finish with him in the ring, and it was a culmination. As he admits that when he went to the WWE, that there may have been a lot of people who didn't know who he was, and so it really was the pinnacle of his career. It was the peak. And anybody that was a fan of professional wrestling and knew of Ric Flair knew what this moment meant. And there were a lot of them, and a lot of people that tuning in on pay-per-view appreciated not just that it was a great event, but what this meant for someone like Ric Flair. And it was a credit to the whole business of you stay on top, and you're relevant in professional wrestling for decades, which is not an easy thing to do. And, you deserve this. You deserve this recognition. And he got it, but not how he really should have gotten it in the end there. He should have, to me, he should have been able to been the one in the ring. And here's your moment.
Agreed. This is his 9th world championship, according to history records. He is the second wrestler ever in history up to this point to hold the NWA and the WWF championship. The other person, which is insane, is also the Nature Boy, Buddy Rogers, which is the first ever WWF world champion, when that's actually how the entire company gets started. I did a video about it. It's very interesting on how the WWF was created with Buddy Rogers and what happens to him after and having a heart attack, and it's controversial. I made a little video about it as well. But also, everything we talked about, Survivor Series 91, this Tuesday in Texas, we talked about Hogan and WrestleMania Now Return. A lot of those subjects were kind of brought up in our conversation here so far. I'll put those all in the description because we 100% covered those in long form already before. So I don't want to harp on this Tuesday in Texas and Survivor Series 91 for another 2 hours here, because we have so much more to talk about here at the Royal Rumble 92. And there's a lot. I'm so excited, though, because in this Royal Rumble, Jack Tunney, my favorite president of all time, he kicks off this Royal Rumble, and he's like, "Listen, everybody, here are the rules, the world title," and the crowd is booing him. Boo! You suck, Jack Tunney!
Don't they know he's the greatest president since Noriega?
According to Bobby Heenan. Those are facts. Those are facts. Why do you think the audience doesn't like Jack Tunney? Even Hulk Hogan, who does his backstage promo, because each wrestler is like, "Today, the Royal Rumble, I'm going to win it for this reason." They all go through it. Hogan, he's looking off camera, and the first thing he says, he's like, "No, that no good Jack Tunney, brother." I'm like, what? we all hate Jack Tunney? Why do you think the crowd booed Jack Tunney? Like, it wasn't like he was a bad guy or a good guy. He was just an old man being like, "There, here's the rules."
Yeah, but he's the one that would deliver the bad news, basically, and everybody hates authority, in a sense, and he's representing all of that, and in a sense, his character he was a buffoon, yeah, really
Really?
yeah, that he was that's what he was supposed to be, and I pulled it off tremendously well. But everybody hates authority like that, and most of the time he's dropping the hammer on somebody,
Mm.
uh, and making up these rules that they have to adhere to. So it was easy to dislike the president of the
Oh, I
WWF,
can't believe the
and he
disrespect you
he was
have.
and he was the perfect character for it.
He banned reptiles from ringside, sir.
See?
This man is a godsend.
Yeah.
Macho Man was bit by a king cobra. Is that what you condone here in this presidency?
Absolutely. Bring him. Bring the dragon. Bring yeah.
Bring the possums,
Yeah, they're not possums. They're
the sewer
Harlem
rats.
sewer rats. Come on.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, and birds. That I
Course.
guess that was Frankie. So
Dogs.
no, that was an awful decision. Uh, that added to the competition there. There was something else you had to keep an eye on. You never knew what was going to happen, or you had dogs humping at ringside or something. You never
People pay for
knew.
that stuff. All right.
That's right.
People want to see that stuff.
But
Mooney was
yeah,
giving
but
us.
it was easy to dislike President Jack Tunney,
That's true. This is
and
all his fault.
it really most of it was, yes, of course.
Well,
But
he was supposed to help the Taker Hogan shit happen at Survivor Series 91. He's like, I'm going to sit
Mhm.
ringside and make sure no shenanigans happen. Ric Flair still showed up, and more shenanigans happened, and that's how we got the world title here in the Royal Rumble. So if we're going to condone everything he did terrible, well, he did give us the world title inside of a Royal Rumble. So thank you, President Jack Tunney, for your service, and God bless Jack Tunney. All right, just want to say that.
God rest his soul.
God
Yes.
rest his soul.
Yeah.
Though in this matchup, rules of the Royal Rumble seem to be made up because during this, the Macho Man comes down in the match. He's beating up Jake the Snake. They have a huge rivalry. I don't know if you noticed. We talked about it. King Cobra eating the Macho Man live on Saturday morning television. Well, Macho Man jumps over
You
the
still
top
have
rope.
nightmares about that, don't you?
Don't talk about my
I know.
bedwetting situation. All right, my bedwetting situation.
Whenever that comes up.
Yeah, please.
You're gonna have a rough one tonight, Steve.
I know. I'm gonna have to delete this as soon as we're done, so I don't remember it later on. I'll just drink a lot of pumpkin spice. But
Okay.
Macho Man eliminates himself. Well, Gorilla and Bobby on commentary like, well, he's out of here.
Yeah.
But yet Taker
By the rules.
rolls underneath the ring, throws Macho Man back in,
Yeah.
and
We
Bobby
need
and
you.
Gorilla are just like, well, I guess he's back in. And the rules of the Rumble obviously change because it's based in, it's a storyline. 1990, Andre the Giant also eliminated himself when Jake came down with the snake. That counted. Macho Man doing it here doesn't count. Should I care? Should I not care? Like, how am I supposed to feel about
No,
it?
I think that if you would have drilled down into the rules that day, you had to have been touched by someone else that whatever motion set into motion you going over the top rope. How does that sound? Does that work?
I'll accept
The
it.
fact that he voluntarily went over, which Randy was used to doing and probably didn't think through, oh, oops, maybe I should have gone under the top rope and then I could have gone out. But I think that day, yes, when we drilled it, you had to have an opponent set in motion, you going over the top rope. That's what I'm standing by for
Okay.
this one.
I'll accept it.
And somebody telling Undertaker, get his ass back in
Yeah.
there.
Speaking of Undertaker, there's another cool rule in this Rumble is Undertaker and Hulk Hogan get to choose their numbers, but not 1 through 30. They pick 20 through 30 because technically they are the past former world champions involved with all the shenanigans with the world title. So they drill that into a storyline where Taker and Hogan will get like kind of a benefit of being former world champions involved with all this crap. So I also like that. Like there's a lot of storytelling in this Royal Rumble match, but there's also some other things that happen here where Bret Hart, around this time, he was the Intercontinental Champion, and originally it's supposed to be him versus the Mountie here at Royal Rumble.
Yeah.
Well, According to stories, Bret Hart has 104-degree temperature, so he loses the Intercontinental Championship to the Mountie at a house show in Springfield, Massachusetts. I was not there. How sad. But here at the Rumble, it's going to be Piper versus the Mountie. Roddy Piper wins his first ever WWF Championship after being here for so long. A lot of talking points here, but one is, storyline is Bret's out, 104-degree temperature.
Yeah.
Rumor is Bret Hart in early 91 was negotiating with WCW to come over to the company. Well, Bret didn't realize his contract rolled over automatically, which means he can't leave. So Bret Hart loses the IT title, Mountie, Piper gets it, so on and so forth.
Yeah, because I mean, maybe that sounded good, but I tell you, I think it'd take a lot more than 104-degree temperature to keep Bret Hart out of the ring.
Yes.
I mean, that guy, I don't know how many times he went out there when he had no business going out there. Should have been in a hospital.
Dude, remember we talked about his brother died the day before Survivor Series 1990. He wrestled. 2 weeks before 89, he got ruptured ribs and a kidney. Wrestled.
Yeah, sternum.
And a sternum, yeah.
Sternum at one, yeah. Yeah.
And now here he is. He can't, 104 temperature. He's out.
Yeah, and then you have him, and you know how this scenario works. When you don't know what's going on with a guy, have him, like you said, drop the belt at a house show, and you make sure you get it's taped, so you got that so that you can, because you don't know what's going to happen with this guy, but you're covered now. You lost the belt, so he can't take it down south.
Yes.
So yeah, I think that was more to what was happening at the time. Yeah, and Bret's wondering, okay, what the hell? What's going on? What's going on here? And
to me, it's weird because Ric Flair came to WWF with the World Championship from WCW. And he called himself the real world champion. And Vince McMahon loved that shit. They had to, eventually blot it out so you couldn't tell what it was. Bret in 91 negotiating with WCW as the Intercontinental Champion. Do you think Bret Hart would have done that? He would have shown up with the world title of the Intercontinental title in WCW and put it on air just like Ric Flair did to him?
No. When it came down to it, Bret Hart, we know the family he came from, and old school. It had nothing to do necessarily with the business as far as money or having the championship and I'll take it down there. He wouldn't have done that. But what he wanted to do is he wanted to do it right. Do me right. The way to do this. I'll drop the belt, but he didn't want to do it. There were scenarios that he said, I'm not going to do it this way. And they want, I'm not going to lose it in Canada. He had certain, and that's what it came down to for him. Like, just do the right thing. And I think that even he was insulted in a sense that you would think I would do something like that. But the threat of it, at least being out there, certainly didn't hurt his situation as far because Vince was worried about it. So, but I don't think, and I certainly wasn't in Bret Hart's head, but just knowing who he is and the way he conducted himself in business and coming from the family that he does with Stu and how you did things, I don't think he ever would have done that. But the threat to help you get some leverage, yeah, okay, I'll go with that.
He wanted a singles push, and I'm understanding that
he wanted to be there forever. He did, and he got that big deal, and then it's just like I can't do that. Well, what does this paper mean? Anything it means nothing,
Well, because you're talking about 97 too, the Montreal Screwjob, and then at 92, it's like connecting both pieces together, which is crazy. Like they both have the same exact implications and scenarios, except one is in 92 when business is down. One happens in 97 where if Vince loses this battle against WCW, it's over. The WWE is probably going to close. So in reality, both scenarios happen. One, Bret just loses the title at a house show to the Mountie. One leads to Montreal Screwjob controversy for the next 30 years.
Yeah, and think about that. That here we are. Look where we are. In it's 92, whatever, and he's already dealing with this. It's already so it never wasn't like it got closer, say in 97, whatever, that things changed.
Mhm.
Like look how it would seem like always that way with Bret. That he never felt like he was ultimately appreciated. And here he is, think I've got it all. I've got everything that I believe represents a champion, and represents this company. And fans loved him. He was certainly absolutely one of the best ever in the ring. And yet there was always that Vince, you could just always had that feeling like, it's like, yeah, but something's missing. And I think that Bret always felt that. And look, see, and it went through. And how much more loyal could you have been to that company
Yeah,
than Bret Hart
I don't. Yep,
all that time?
it's true. Like I think Bret Hart even said later on, he's like, I've only missed the WWF any events maybe 4 times ever in his life. He said,
Hmm.
and up until the Montreal Screwjob, it's just crazy that 92 and 97 just mirror each other, but the scenarios are so different, yet they are exactly the same. And Bret Hart loses the IC title to the Mountie. Piper wins his first championship. Bret Hart, though, beats Piper at WrestleMania 8, gets his belt back. And according to the stories are, Bret Hart talked to Vince, and Vince convinced him, please stay, please stay. I promise you a singles run. Well,
Hmm.
that worked out because by October of 1992, Bret Hart is your world champion. There is no more Hulk Hogan. Warriors out by November 92. Flair's out in 93 early. Savage steps back and does commentary. You're left with Bret Hart, and you're left with Shawn Michaels to carry the ball, which they
Yeah.
do 100% on their. They do. They
Yeah.
carry it. It's just crazy to think that.
But you also have to you think in mind that did Brett feel it was through the acts of elimination,
I
as you
think so.
said?
I think
Yeah.
so.
And so you don't really feel like you were the guy.
No.
You were the guy because the other ones in
You look
front of
around,
you aren't there
look
and
around the
weren't
room.
dependable or
Who's still
whatever it
here?
is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think he always felt that way. And that's too bad because, I mean, if you're going to do it, you're going to put the strap on him, then be behind him 1,000%.
Mhm.
Don't always be, as you just were doing, like Vince looking over his shoulder going, is there somebody else here that's going to be able to really change this?
Mhm.
And so I don't think he ever really had that feeling of, they're behind me all the way. I'm the guy.
Yeah, I don't think they ever did because even when
Yeah.
Bret main event in SummerSlam 92 against British Bulldog in London, England, Wembley Stadium, your favorite event, one of the best Golden Era pay-per-views. But even after that, on commentary, they suggest that Papa Shango put a curse on Bret Hart, which made him lose the Intercontinental title.
Yeah.
So there you go. There's not a lot of, hey, buddy, you're our guy. It's more of a, hey, you're here and we need you.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah. Bret Hart, though, it's interesting what happened to him. But Piper, he wins the Intercontinental title for the first time ever. His first WWF championship. Why do you think this is the first time Piper won a belt?
Well,
He
he
didn't need
didn't
it.
need him. That's yeah. And Piper was Piper. I mean, he was just this loose cannon, and uh, you know, and I don't think that he was always one of those guys that near the top, but not where you're going to see, an extended period of time where he was going to be able to keep that. You knew it. I was very happy for him. I thought that was awesome because it's kind of one of those a nod to say, we appreciate what you do. But as far as long-term plans, I'm once that he got that belt, I think everybody knew he was gonna hold on to it for very long.
He had a great match with Bret Hart at
Yeah,
WrestleMania 8.
yeah.
It's one of the best matches from that card, besides
Hmm.
Savage versus Ric Flair, where I was disappointed there still were no naked pictures of Miss Elizabeth, as I was promised by Bobby Heenan and Ric Flair. That's a personal problem. But yeah, Bret Hart was one of the greatest of all time, and especially around this time. Piper, Intercontinental Champion. There is a funny moment, though, after this it's not Saturday night's main event anymore because NBC canceled their contract. It's on Fox. It's called The Main Event. And Piper fights Mountie again. Mountie throws water on Roddy Piper. So he's going to use his giant shock stick on him. He goes to shock him. Piper is, "Ah!" Mountie turns around. Piper gets up, beats Mountie again. And we're like, wait, how did the shockproof? What happened? How he takes off his shirt? He's wearing just like a rubber vest that says shockproof on it.
They had to make sure everybody knew that. In
Like
case you're wondering.
giant words.
Yeah.
Shockproof.
Shockproof. Yeah.
Oh, that's why. That's
That's
what
how
happened.
that happened. Oh, okay.
It makes sense now. More things that happen here. In the Royal Rumble, we've seen tag team wrestlers enter the Royal Rumble match. They never usually win. Jerry Saggs is in this match. Brian Knobbs is not. Apparently, 2 weeks before the Royal Rumble, he was stabbed 4 times by a 20-year-old. Jerry Saggs was there. So was IRS. But 4 men are there attacking the wrestlers. They followed them, knocked them off the road with their car, got out. Brian is trying to check the damage on the car while these other men jump him and stab him 4 times in the chest.
No.
First off, how often was it for wrestlers to be challenged in the real world to see how tough they were? And how insane is it to hear that someone's being stabbed 4 times?
Well, unfortunately, that did happen a lot, where, these guys, they go out there in different towns and they want to blow off some steam after the matches. And you're always going to have some Yahoo who's the local tough guy who says, these guys are a bunch of fakies and, I could kick his ass. And they're going to go over and start some shit with somebody. And, most of the time, these guys regretted that decision because not only were a lot of these guys legitimately freaking badasses, people like Hacksaw Jim Duggan, and you think with the 2x4, Jim was one of the toughest guys out there. Hercules, Haku, you've heard. So that was usually a really bad decision. And then also, you were probably there with 8 or 9 of your friends that you work with, and they knew you shut that down quick. But like in a situation like this, it was like a road rage incident, and these guys see who they are, and the car full of heels or whatever, and it ends up on the side of the road. And I've heard different things. I don't think that Brian was stabbed 4 times in the chest. I think it was like he, got a bunch on his arm and then one to his chest. But whatever it played out, he lost a bunch of blood. He lost a lot of blood. He had to have a transfusion and could have easily died. Could have bled out. And so even though he would recover, and I even heard things like he was out of the hospital that night, which wouldn't surprise me because those guys were insane. But he wasn't in any shape to wrestle. He wasn't in shape to go in the ring. And but this was this is the back in the wild west, and things like this would happen. And guys weren't going to change their lifestyle. They were still going to go out, and stuff like this was going to happen. And you saw guys getting arrested all the time, and because people would want to challenge these guys so they could brag to their buddies, even if they got their ass kicked. They could still say, I got into it with him. I got him to throw a punch, something.
Do you remember hearing about this? Are you at work and someone's like, "Hey, did you hear what happened?"
Yeah, yeah. And like I said, that's even then. Like there wasn't really reports out, and I remember that he had like bandages when he did come back to work. But those 2 guys were just insane. There's a lot of stories with them. They would, as you can imagine, and they like to fight. That's just where they came from, and their world. But they got into all kinds of trouble with other wrestlers, and they that's just the way it worked for those guys. But tough son of a bitches. I mean, those guys would go at it all the time. And sometimes that happened in the ring. These guys would be stiff and they're throwing punches. So, I remember hearing about it, but they said he was okay.
Okay.
Remarkably. And IRS, Mike, it somehow didn't end up anything really bad happened to him because I think that, Jerry like these idiots came out and somebody had some jumper cables and were swinging them around and smacked Jerry Sags in the head
Yep.
and go to the hospital too in a concussion. But then he, worked.
Right. He's like
Right.
third, I think.
No,
No, he's fourth.
it was just my head. I'm
Yeah.
fine.
My buddy just got stabbed. He's fine. He's in the
Yeah,
hospital. Don't
yeah.
worry. He'll be
But and it's true, and
back
like
at work.
that's their life, man. You imagine something like that happens in their life, they're going to be, 8 weeks. They're going to be nursing it or whatever. These next day they're back at work.
Yeah. Probably a contract situation, unfortunately, at the time.
I remember the story about the Barbarian. I think I told you, he got into a fight at the diner, uh, trying to impress some waitress or something, and uh, they she was not keen to his advances and called the cops. And the story goes that 8 or 9 cops show up, and Barb takes them all on, and they have to. The story went that the guy came up with pepper spray, sprayed it in his face, and Barbarian grabs it out of his hand and sprays it in his mouth like mouthwash, mouth spray, and then tossed guys. I mean, like ruined his diner, and they beat the living crap out of him with nightsticks to subdue him, and they bailed him out, and he worked the next day. I remember seeing he had bruises from head to toe. And you imagine going in there and you're bumping?
After being beaten
Like
down
they're
by
inhuman. And from his part of the world, those people are inhuman. They don't have any pain receptors. They don't it doesn't register. But still, the fact that this stuff happened. It happened all the time.
but you're
And
right.
it was just part of the business, but smart guys got to their rooms, made sure they stayed out of trouble because first of all, people weren't necessarily walking around with guns, but they did. And but today, geez, I mean, probably have a lot more incidents with people pulling out handguns now. But back then, it was mostly somebody would have some kind
Jumper
of
cables.
weapon, well, or a knife.
Yeah.
And that's all, your career's over. Even if it isn't, doesn't kill you, but could have been life threatening, and then you can't work. So, but it was part of the business. And I know Jim Duggan telling me a ton of stories about them going out and taking on, 10 guys. And, Hercules he said, like, he called them the windmill. He would just blow through these guys, swinging, taking them down one at a time. And that's just the way it was back then. And I know that in some of these organizations, that if you lost, you were fired. If he heard you lost at a bar fight, then you would get fired because it made them look bad. You're out. So that was the old school. But
Yeah.
thank God that Brian was okay. Um, it's tough now. I know he's going through really difficult health issues right now. Um, comes with the mileage on that car is about up, and we can all just pray for him that he gets through it all.
Well, good for him for surviving a stabbing in 1982, a few weeks before the Royal Rumble. And, there's so many conflicting stories about this too, is because one of them is the guy who gets arrested. He gets, obviously the guy who stabbed someone is arrested eventually. He's like, oh, I was punched in the face 10 times. But then according to the photos, there's no marks on your face at all. So
Yeah.
who you were punched by Jerry Sags or IRS or Brian Knobs, I'm going to take a wild guess. If you were punched in the face by them 10 times, your face would have markings all over it or your face would be crushed in. So that story didn't add up to me when I first read that. I was like, no, this is.
Yeah, and it
This
sounds
can't be
like
true.
it was yeah, these guys were bad news. And I think that when they jumped Brian, he was like looking to see because they bumped the car.
Yeah.
And so he's not even looking, and they attacked him. So I think, but I think the guy served 2 years or something. Should have been in there for 20. For doing that, could have killed him. That was attempted murder.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
They didn't seem to care, but
Good times, good times.
yeah, good times, good times. Oh, let's talk about something even better. The Rockers breaking up. Now, in this Royal Rumble, backstage, you're in the classic blue locker rooms. And I love those blue locker rooms. You're
Yeah.
just sitting there, and Barbarian walks by, he bumps into you, oh, oh. And then
Mm,
Shawn Michaels in his new, sexy boy gimmick
mm.
walks by you, and you're like, Shawn Michaels. And they play this whole package about what just happened in the barbershop with Shawn Michaels. Well, actually, it was Marty Jannetty being afraid of Shawn Michaels jumping through the barbershop window, as Bobby Heenan would put it.
Yeah, right.
But that tag team breaks up. So they write off Marty Jannetty. He's not going to be in the Royal Rumble. We're going to have Volkov replace him in the Royal Rumble. Also, Haku plays Brian Knobbs, if you were curious. So this ends. They're supposed to have Marty Jannetty stay home, hey, you're hurt. But also, an arrest happens because Marty Jannetty gets in a fight at a bar as well, and the cops show up. Well,
They say,
he's in possession of drugs. They arrest him. So now the storyline is no longer, hey, you've been thrown through a barbershop window. You're hurt. It's, oh, you've been arrested for drugs and you're fired. He doesn't come back until late of 92. Okay, Marty Jannetty.
yeah.
What are you hearing that Marty Jannetty has suffered once again a terrible situation? Because also with these two, according to other rumors, is Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty had a real bar fight themselves after Roddy Piper suggested that Shawn Michaels was the future of professional wrestling. When Marty took this to heart, and
Hmm.
Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty actually have a real fist fight. But then this leads to more stories of Marty suggesting that they leave and they go to WCW. They'll have this money. But Marty is talking for Shawn Michaels in all these negotiations. Shawn Michaels is not involved with any of this.
Right.
Marty's doing this all behind Shawn's back, which again, very obvious that Shawn doesn't like this. The Rockers break up on real television, probably in real life. Marty's out. Shawn is the future of professional wrestling in the WWF. What were your thoughts on all this? Because for a long time, I thought Marty would be the guy. It turns out it was Shawn Michaels.
Yeah. I think I've mentioned that before too. I remember when I first saw those two come in, and I thought Marty was the one who, had his head on straight.
Hmm.
Boy, how wrong I was. And it just shows you that, yeah, like in a lot of ways, like Marty couldn't get out of his own way as far as doing the right thing. He just seemed to always do the opposite. And I think he started to see as they progressed, and they kept getting better and better, and they were among the top tier of the tag teams. And he thinks everything's awesome. It's all great. I mean, he's happy. This is good. Let's just keep this going. And in the meantime, Sean's starting to think of, I don't want to be a tag team forever. I think I could do really well as a solo, and I think Vince McMahon is seeing it. So I think in a lot of ways it became a little like desperation on Marty's part that he's, if I can, things are going south here. I can see where it's going, and Sean is, wants to split this up, and if he splits this up, this is over. So he starts thinking, well, if I can get us a deal and it's big money and it's more than we're making here, well, maybe Sean will go for it. And then we can keep this rolling. And I don't, no matter, like you said, first of all, I'm sure Sean didn't appreciate him trying to work a deal without him knowing anything.
Right.
That certainly didn't, help matters. And then he'd already made up his mind. Sean knew what he wanted his future to be, and he was willing to take that risk and become a solo performer. And so that didn't help. And when it came down to it, and they did have that confrontation, because and justly so in a sense, because that was just brewing, and it was going to happen. And I know that like Sean wasn't happy with that, so it was just a matter of time, and you could see it. Um, they were, when coming in and when they first got rolling and everything, you could do it as the best of friends, man. You did the stories about the parties the night before and the girls and all this, wild everything. And then you started to see it start. You could just see it started to wear, and it wasn't I don't know if that was Sean maturing or him just seeing that this isn't good, and he's not gonna help me get to that next place. And I think a lot of the stuff, and Sean was guilty of it too, was reckless with their behavior was.
Oh yeah.
That, eventually you get away with it and get away with it and get away with it until you don't. And then when you don't, it's a bad thing. And that, like that situation with Marty, what the hell are you doing? First of all, Bart, what the hell are you doing getting into a fight? And what the hell are you doing carrying something that's going to get you arrested? And when you're associated with that, you're going to go down with them. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot to Marty Jannetty. I think he actually might hold the world record in the WWF for being the person who got fired and rehired the
Yeah.
most. And
Yeah.
that's not
Well, because he was
that's not
so
something you
good,
want.
though. Yeah, but see, he was so good.
That every
Uh,
time they kept bringing him back.
Yeah, they wouldn't have. They don't take a chance on problems unless they like you and you bring something to the table. And Marty was a great performer. I mean, he really was.
Mhm.
And I always wondered if he really would have been able to focus and work that way, that maybe he would have been a very successful solo performer too. But he just couldn't, as I said, couldn't get out of his own way. It just always the fork, when the fork came, he always chose the wrong one. Like, yeah, that's a good idea.
He
Or
also had
yeah,
bad
I'll go
luck.
there,
He
or
had a lot
I'll
of
go
bad
out
luck.
and do this instead of, you know, no, I gotta, if I want to be successful, this is the way I gotta go. And it's like, nah, I'd rather go have some fun.
Shawn Michaels, though, he also reinvents himself. He's no longer dressing up like the Rockers. He's
Mhm.
dressed up as, the sexy boy character. They even start dropping off
HBK. Yeah.
the Elvis scenarios where like Shawn Michaels has left the building,
Yeah.
as they would do for Elvis back in the day. Marty Jannetty, every time he came back, he was just Marty Jannetty who's in the Rockers. He never reinvented himself. He was always dressed the same. The music was the same. The tassels. Again,
Mhm.
nothing against an act that works, but Shawn Michaels,
Gotta evolve.
Survivor Series 1991. Shawn Michaels is in a Survivor Series match. It's
Mhm.
the Rockers are together, and 1 year later, Survivor Series 1992, Shawn Michaels is in the main event for the World Wrestling Federation Championship against Bret the Hitman Hart. I think Shawn Michaels made the right decision on betting on himself being a single star versus staying in a tag team that was doing well. It's like
Mhm.
staying in a job. Hey, we're doing a
Yeah.
great job here. Everything's going great, but I want more. And he definitely got more.
Yeah. Yeah. For the long term success. You saw it, because you said they were great. They were at the top, but he wanted more and was willing to take that chance. Was willing because he believed in himself that much and knew that was the only thing, that was what was going to keep him there.
He did it. He did it.
Yeah.
I love though that you're backstage in the blue locker room because like everyone's just walking by you and you're like, oh, I'm back
Yeah.
here and there's so many people and all these stars and Shawn Michaels just appears out of nowhere. But Barbarian gave you a good old arm. He shoved you good and you're like, oh, okay. Let's not do this to me, please.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
loved it.
Just don't
Those
go
like
to a diner with him.
yeah,
I'll have
please God don't.
breakfast.
Don't go to a bar with Margetti and Shawn Michaels either.
Yeah,
Bad things
right.
will
Yeah.
happen. You know what? Just stay in your hotel, Mooney,
Yeah,
okay?
right.
Just
I
go
always tell
from
you.
point A to point B, wear a hoodie, cover yourself, don't get in trouble. Those like the main talking points of this whole event, but the other matches that happen, you have the New Foundation versus the Orient Express to kick off this. This is the second time the Orient Express has kicked off a Royal Rumble. They did it in 91 as well. But this is probably the match. Like if we're talking like matches, tag team one-on-ones, whatever, this is the match of the night. But I do want to say, what in the hell is up with Owen Hart and Jim Neidhart's clothes? Like the MC Hammer pants. I guess Owen loved this look, but
Yeah.
I can't imagine anyone liking this look.
No, no, I didn't either. And you just summed it up. It was like MC Hammer pants cross a checkered cab. I like I don't really know what the hell was going on. Yeah, and we talked about Owen before. He look at the costumes that he was wearing all the time. It just the blue blazer gimmick and all that. It just he never found his way as far as the what was the right gimmick for him. Because and Owen was what was tremendous, but he's another one that just never found his way. It just found that what was going to work, and that's too bad because he really was so great.
Yeah.
Um,
In the golden era, he's definitely all over the place. I would say new generation, who becomes the king of hearts, and he hates Bret, he hates his
Yeah.
brother, and he's double slammies, and he wins the King of the Ring. I think that's when he found his footing. But then Montreal happens, and then we unraveled once again. Though I love that match. Roddy Piper, of course, defeats the Mountie for the Intercontinental Championship. The Beverly Brothers defeated the Bushwhackers when the Genius, after the match, attacks Jameson. What's the point of Jameson? Like, what is he just like the Revenge of the Nerds type of character? Like,
Yeah.
what is the real reason?
Well, I don't know, the story behind Jameson, but Jameson was an actor, a struggling actor, and was part of a acting troupe that would go to different communities around New York, and they would do these mystery theaters.
Mm-hmm.
And the story goes like Vince and Linda went to one of these, and Jameson was one of the characters. It was kind of the clue. He was one of the who did what, who's the
Who
mystery,
killed who,
murder
with the-
mystery, yeah.
Yeah.
And Vince was just so amused by Jameson that he wanted to figure out how I could work him in, and that's how that all started with Jameson. And he was going to be. Remember when Bobby Heenan had his short-lived show? He was
The Bobby Heenan show.
Yeah, his sidekick. I mean, it was just, yeah. And Jameson was great. Backstage, and really a talented guy. But as far as when they wanted to do other stuff with him, to be the manager and stuff like that, and he didn't come from professional wrestling at all. I mean, he wanted to be an actor. It was a gig. It was a gig. So that whole thing, the Genius attacking Jameson. I mean, what was going to be one of those gimmick matches down the road? Like Howard getting in there and having a match. I payment value, and I think it was just stuff that just amused Vince.
Jesus, he's eating his tie. You see that?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it wasn't great. And even in this, Jameson's about to punch the Genius, and he does one of these, like, and then he just kicks him in the ankle instead.
Yeah.
It was not.
I actually tracked down when I was doing primetime, or doing early episodes of primetime with Sean Mooney. And I did I found Jameson and did an hour and a half with him. You should listen to it, because he's a fascinating guy, and he tells the story of how he ended up there and his relationship with Bobby and everybody else. And he has a son who he was on a sitcom for a long time, who's become a very successful actor. So check out that episode. That's a little side note there, but check out Jameson and when you go to Primetime with Sean Mooney.
Yeah, we'll put that in
a
the
bunch of other
description
great content there as well, Steve.
Of course. A
You're on
bunch.
there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you interviewed so many different individuals about the past, the present, the future of the golden era of professional wrestling. But yeah, Jameson was one of those. I'm like, huh. Before we move on to the next match, though, there's one note about the new foundation. Owen Hart and Jim Neidhart come down in their parachute pants, and Bobby on commentary says to Gorilla, "Did they just wake up?" And Gorilla goes, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Well, they're in their pajamas."
Like I said, I would look at those outfits, and it's funny. Owen thought it was great, and then also when he was with Coco, and
High
they kind of
energy.
had the same, yeah.
But like, why? Like, we
It
had
is what it is.
had the Hart Foundation, Jim Neidhart, Bret Hart. That worked. Okay, why not just be the new foundation, or not even that, just be the Hart Foundation, but wear the same gear, wear the same pink and black attack gear. Not, hey, we should reinvent ourselves and be very timely for what we're going through in life, and that's parachute pants are in, so we should have them too. Well,
Absolutely.
30 years later, when you're wearing black trunks, 30 years later, it looks okay because you're wearing black trunks. When you're wearing parachute pants and cab driver hats, well, not the same thing.
No.
And then the tag team titles were also on the line. It was the Natural Disasters taking on LOD. Double count out. Boring match. And I remember watching this as a child going, I'm going to fast forward this every time. I never stopped and said, I'm going to watch this, because when I see LOD, I want to see them toss people around.
Yeah.
How can they toss around Typhoon and Earthquake? It was like
Yeah,
these
they're not
two
getting him
didn't
up on the
match up.
shoulders. Is that what you're saying?
He couldn't pick him up on his shoulders. He couldn't throw him around. He couldn't scoop someone. He couldn't take advantage of him and beat him up.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
didn't. It was very strange. It's like watching two high flyer tag teams fight each other. But here we
yeah.
have two powerhouse tag teams fighting each other. I wasn't feeling it, but and around this time we know that eventually the tag team titles, LOD will lose them at a house show, and that will be the end of their run after SummerSlam 1992. But at Royal Rumble 1992, it was not fair to Flair, as Bobby Heenan would yell all night long. Not fair to Flair.
No.
I gotta say, I'm so happy we talked about everything about this event, because this is one of my favorite events, and having you put the stamp on it saying, yes, this is the greatest Royal Rumble of all time, because it's hard to argue with. Well, you could say, well, I grew up in the 90s, so it should be, late 2000s, or, oh, no, I liked last year, or I liked the year before, because that's what I love. It's hard for newer wrestling fans to appreciate, I think, older wrestling, because they don't relate to the stars. They don't care about your Jake the Snakes and your Herculeses. They care about your Damian Priests and your Rhea Ripleys, and that's fine. Where do you think new fans would stand if they sat down and watched this? Would they think this is the greatest event ever?
Well,
It's like watching old
that's
movies,
a tall order. That is a tall order to say that, especially from what has
Come out.
transpired since. But but for that time, and I think you watch it today, you're going to be entertained from start to finish. Especially the Rumble there. That whole they kept it moving, and I this the way this worked was the scenario is really great, because the Rumbles before is where you'd start with 30 guys and then you'd eliminate them single, one at a time or whatever they did. But this thing, where you've got somebody coming in at minutes and there's this excitement that's going on, who's next, who's going to come in, and then you got a little time, you got room to work in there. It was brilliant, so it was great.
I loved it. Ric Flair wins the WWF Championship in the Royal Rumble. They don't do this for another 15 years when Roman Reigns had to put up his world title inside of a Royal Rumble. But he actually defended the world title in the Rumble, coming in at number one. This is different scenario. But when that happened, it reminded everyone of this 1992 event. So I will say this is still the greatest Royal Rumble of all time. Some people argue 2001 because you had The Rock, you had Austin, you had Taker, you had Kane, you had Big Show, you had Angle, you had everyone and your mother. But this one holds near and dear to the Golden Era podcast, of course. So all in all, Mooney, final thoughts on this Rumble?
Well, as I said, it was, it's a great collection of some of the greatest professional wrestlers of all time, and it stands the test of time. You see how many of these guys have ended up in the Hall of Fame, and it was classic WWE. And as I said, it stands the test of time. You can watch this again, and you will be entertained start to finish, especially listening to the great Bobby Heenan.
I was just going to say that. The commentary, I think it's like when someone introduced me, say, to the Beatles. Well, I didn't grow up in the 60s, obviously. But when you listen to them, or Elvis or other stars, you're like, wow, I can appreciate this. This is a good song. This might be my favorite song. Royal Rumble 92, I think, holds up as it's not like watching an old movie where like I can see the boom mic or I can see the zipper in the Monsters costume. No, this holds up from start to finish. The commentary alone is the soundtrack of a lot of children's, a lot of grown-ups' lives, actually, core memories. So all in all, Sean Mooney, thank you so much for sitting here and talking about the Royal Rumble 1992. Woo! Right here on the Golden Era podcast. I'm Steve Fall. He's Sean Mooney. Have a wonderful day, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.